Betrayal at House on the Hill is a board game published by Avalon Games, of which it is fair to say I am something of a fan. The game has 50 different story modes called haunts, and recently, as part of my bucket list, I finally played through the 50th haunt, the last one that I hadn't played, and now I've decided to make a video ranking all of them, because it took me 2 years to play through all 50 haunts, and I want to feel like I got something more out of that time than just crossing something off a list. To give a little bit of context for the game, it is procedurally generated. In the story of the game, you are exploring a haunted house, so you put down different tiles with rooms on them. The rooms might give you an item, or an event might happen to you in the room, or sometimes the rooms will give you omens. You roll 6 dice every time you pick up an omen, and when the dice roll is less than the number of omens in play, the haunt begins. Until that point in the game has been cooperative, all the players are on the same side, you assist each other. After the haunt starts, almost always one player turns traitor. There are 3 haunts where there is no traitor, although I would say there is actually only 1 haunt where there is no traitor, but I will come to that later. So the traitor then gains control of a monster, or they gain some kind of superpower. Normally they want to kill the other players, although not always. Sometimes they will have a goal that is completely unrelated to murder. And the other players, the remaining players who are not traitors, the heroes, have to try and stop the traitor. That is how the game goes. It's incredibly fun, it's incredibly engaging. You have different stats as different characters. The stats can raise, they can fall. No 2 games are ever the same. The board is always different. You always get different events, you get different items, you do a different haunt. It's so much fun, it's so variable, it's so replayable, it's my favorite game. And yeah, I always enjoy playing it, I never have a bad time. However, I do think some of the haunts are better thought through than others. Certainly, if people have a criticism of this game, and a lot of people do, it's that it's not very well balanced, and I completely agree with that. Personally, I view Betrayal as an experience unto itself. It's like playing chess. You might lose a game of chess, but that doesn't mean that you don't like chess. I think of Betrayal as every game of Betrayal I've played added up. Yes, a lot of the haunts aren't very well balanced, but all that means is that at one point I will play one that's very easy for me, at one point I'll play one that's very difficult for me, and thus balance will be achieved in the macro sense. Anyway, I have ranked all 50 haunts in the 2nd edition of Betrayal at House on the Hill. The 1st edition of Betrayal at House on the Hill is one of 2 versions of Betrayal at House on the Hill that I don't own. The other one being Scooby-Doo Betrayal at House on the Hill, which my friend owns, which I have played, and the less said about that version, the better. Anyway, I've ranked all the 50 haunts in the version of the game that I first got, and I want to go through that list with you. Before I start, my ranking is incredibly subjective. I did really try not to let my play experience affect my ranking too much. There are some games that were very easy for me that I've put low. There are some games that were very hard for me that I've put high. But of course, my play experience did affect it. It couldn't not. I also, some of these haunts I've only played through once 2 years ago. So I had to look at the guides to remind me. I understand that's not the same as playing it. It can't be, but it's as good as I could do. I've used a bunch of criteria to determine which haunt is the best and which is the worst. I've applied them very unevenly. It's not very well balanced, much like some would say Betrayal itself. Alright, let's get on to the list. At number 50, the very worst, is haunt number 14, The Stars Are Right. In The Stars Are Right, the traitor is allied with, or is possibly the leader of, a cult who I believe are trying to summon an elder god, or maybe trying to destroy the world. They have big ambitions. They really are aiming for the stars, which, as we heard from the title, are right. To accomplish this goal, they have to complete a ritual which includes killing all the heroes. That sounds fun, right? It sounds exciting, it sounds engaging, it sounds like a high-concept, fun romp. So why is it number 50? Well, this is the least adorned haunt. This, for my money, is the most base level haunt. It kind of reminds me of a bottle episode of a long-running TV show. Like, you know the episode of Breaking Bad where it's just in the lab, which is a set they'd already built, and it's only Walter and Jesse, so it's actors that they already had on the payroll, and they don't go anywhere else. They don't do anything else. They don't use props that they didn't have before. It's that. It's exactly that. It feels like that, which is weird because they're mostly relying on my imagination, which is a free resource. So I don't know why they felt they need to cut costs with this one. The reason it feels unadorned, the reason it feels uninteresting is that no stats are boosted at any point. The traitor does not gain any new powers. The cultists of which the traitor is in control have very average stats. They pose a threat only if you have been massively power depleted before the start of the game, but also, unless your stats are really boosted, you don't pose much of a threat to them. Also, the story of this game, the way you win as the hero, is you go to different rooms, which are predetermined by the rules of the Haunt. You don't even get to choose the rooms, neither does the traitor. You go to those rooms, you pick up a can of paint, you walk with it to the pentagram chamber, which is a room in the basement, and you throw the paint into the pentagram chamber to disrupt the pentagram, thus making the ritual unachievable. That's just not that interesting to me. It's very basic. I guess I like the idea of marring a mystic pentagram with ordinary paint. That's kind of funny. But other than that, there's really nothing to this haunt. I feel like if this was the first haunt that you played in Betrayal, you would probably not want to play the game again because you wouldn't see the heights of lunacy that it can reach. This isn't the most annoying haunt by any stretch, but it's certainly the least haunt in my opinion, and that's why it's number 50. Okay, moving on. Number 49 is haunt number 24, Fly Away Home, aka the one with all the bats. In this, the traitor summons a lot of bats, and the bats want to drink the blood of the heroes. Why is it number 49 out of 50? Because I have played this haunt so many times as the traitor. I've been the traitor every time I've done this haunt, and I genuinely thought this was unwinnable as the traitor. I just thought it was not possible to win. I have now played it as the traitor and won. However, I still don't think it's particularly fun. I don't understand who came up with this. Specifically, what's really annoying is that the traitor dies immediately. The traitor is taken out of the game before the game starts. So you are only playing as the bats, and the bats do not have particularly interesting mechanics. The bats can fly, obviously, they can move, and if they're in the same room as someone, they can try to attach them. The attachment is just done by a dice roll. It's a 1 in 3 chance to attach them. And that's all you're doing as the bats, essentially, is you move them into a room with someone, and you roll dice to determine whether or not you attach them. And if you do, you eventually deplete their stats and they die, and that's how you win. Also working against this haunt is, again, the rooms where the bats appear are predetermined by the haunt. You do not get to decide that as the traitor. The heroes do not get to decide that. And there aren't that many rooms where the bats can appear, and they aren't always in the game. They do not have to be in the game for the haunt to start. So you can just not have that many bats as the traitor. Your only avenue of winning is to summon a lot of bats, and unless you have the right rooms in the haunt, you just can't summon a lot of bats. It's quite easy to stop the bats being summoned as well. The only reason I won as the traitor that one time is because the two people I were playing with had very low stats. They'd had a couple of run-ins with Jonah from Jonah's Turn and the creepy puppet, so they were feeling pretty weak, and that's why I won. Frankly, I don't think this one is that engaging. You see a lot of iterations of the same idea with Betrayal. I feel like every idea they had has at least 2 different haunts attached to it. And the idea that you have a lot of things that can do a little bit of damage will come up again and be executed better. Although it should be said, not that much better. I don't like this one. I don't like that mechanic. And yeah, I feel I've adequately expressed why. So let's move on. Number 48 is haunt number 37, Checkmate. This is the personal least favorite of one of my friends with whom I've played this game a lot, because this haunt is one of the random haunts that seems to come up many times. I don't know why. In theory, all the haunts should come up roughly the same with equal frequency, but it just does not work out that way. Anyway, Checkmate. The concept of checkmate is really fun. You are playing chess against death, and you have to keep on playing chess against death, or death will kill you all. Super fun, right? Super engaging. Love that. Yeah, I love it too. I do not like the execution because someone has to be playing chess against death at all times. So one person is stuck in the room with death constantly. And that's just not that fun for them. It takes one player out of the game almost entirely. There's nothing they can do. In theory, you can switch out who is in the room with death, but the person who's in the room with death is almost always the person with the highest knowledge, and that's not really going to change, or it's not likely to change, so why would you sub them out? Frankly, it's just unfair, and it's not that fun to play. Also, this is very petty. I don't like that Death does not have his own monster figure. The big name monsters normally get their own figure. They get this little token, a little round token, with their likeness printed on it. So Dracula gets that. The Worm Ouroboros gets that. Frankenstein's monster gets that. And Death doesn't. Death is just a random purple monster token. And I do not understand why. Show some respect to him. He's literally Death. Anyway, that is why I don't like Checkmate. I think the concept is fun. I think the execution left something to be desired. But don't worry, we'll see Death again. You'll always see Death in Betrayal. All right, number 47 is haunt number 38, Hellbeasts, aka the other one with bats. But this time the bats are on fire. That does make it slightly cooler. They've applied the Pokemon principle of setting an animal on fire does automatically make it cooler. And it's for that reason alone that Hellbeasts is ranked slightly higher than the other bats haunt. The fire bats, again, they are just called fire bats. They did not try and come up with a cool name in any way. The fire bats do have a slightly more useful mechanic for when they are deployed, which is that they automatically hurt people they automatically hurt players if they are in the same room as them. That's useful. You're not just making dice throws trying to attach to random people. You're singeing them by just being in their presence. I like that. That's a good idea. That's an improvement. Another improvement is that the traitor remains in the game at all points, so they can go around and still do things. That is a big improvement. I like that. Also, in my head, the fire bats look very impressive. I'm imagining something like in the Dark of the Night from Anastasia, where he's surrounded by all the swirling green spirits, but it's fire bats. And in my imagination, that's very cool. However, that's something I brought to the table, not Betrayal. So this is still a very low-ranked haunt. The fire bats aren't that big a threat, but at least they're on fire. You know, I'm amazed that they don't just burn themselves to death, to be honest. All right. Number 46 is haunt number 13, Perchance to Dream. This haunt is another very cool idea that was not given a particularly cool execution. The traitor falls asleep, and their nightmares are trying to get out into the world and destroy everything. That sounds great. I love that. What a wonderful idea. Why is this so low ranked? Well, I did say that I tried not to let my play experiences affect my ranking too much. This one, I couldn't let it go. We literally lost in one turn. I had a turn, my friend had a turn, then it was the traitor's go, and he immediately won. There was nothing we could have done to stop him. Why is that? It's because the nightmares escape using outdoor-facing windows. Outdoor-facing windows is a very nebulous concept in Betrayal. It comes up in quite a few different rules, quite a few different events or haunts, and it's something that they sometimes struggle to define. It's because of the way the game is drawn. The windows are not always super clear. There is a list in the book. I did not know this for far too long, given how long I've played this game. There is a list in the book of all the rooms that have outdoor-facing windows. Why they don't just print that in all the haunts that use outdoor-facing windows, I don't know. I guess they want to leave it up to interpretation. Anyway, the spectres can leave using rooms with outdoor-facing windows, and there are quite a few, and the spectres are very fast. This would be a fine concept if the spectres had one or two movement. and you could get in their way easily. But you can't. They just escape and you're done for. Also, I feel the concept of fighting a nightmare is such an interesting idea. I feel they could have done that so much more. The nightmares just make sanity attacks, which is what pretty much every psychic-based monster in Betrayal does. There's nothing of the chimera nature that I think a nightmare could have. There's nothing of the sort of frenzied creativity that could go into saying why this nightmare is different from other monsters that you face. I think it's a wasted opportunity, and that's why this haunt is quite low. All right. Number 45 is haunt number 36, Better with Friends. The concept of Better with Friends is that the mansion is sinking. But not only is the mansion sinking, but there is a canoe in the attic. But not only is there a canoe in the attic, but there is the ghost of someone who drowned 50 years ago, who wants to make all of you drown because they think it's fun to drown. Normally, that kind of lunacy is exactly what I'm here for. I love all of that, in theory. However, again, this haunt is just way too easy to win, this time for the heroes. Why is that? Well, A house sinking does not impede you that much, even if you're stuck in the basement the way I was when we played this. I was actually super lucky when we played this. I picked one of the few events that teleports you to a different part of the house, and by complete coincidence, it teleported me to the top floor. So I was just immediately zapped out of danger. Even if that hadn't happened, I still would rank this one quite low, I think, because you only have to get a majority of the heroes out. So if you are trapped and cannot get out of the sinking parts of the house, you can just let yourself die and thus let your friends escape. It's not that difficult. The ghost can, in theory, attack the canoe. However, the ghost has to get into the same room as the canoe. So the ghost is running the same race that you are, but they also have to then destroy something. The ghost does not gain that many new abilities. The ghost does not have that many powers to hurt or delay you. I just think it's unfair on the traitor. I think it's a shame because it's such a cool concept. It's such a brilliant idea. I also love one thing I love about this haunt is that it is it's canonically one of the little girl characters who is the drowning ghost. And that's a very cool use of horror imagery. I just wish that they had given the traitor slightly more powers to try and make this one a little fairer. I think one big addition, one thing that I think would be cool, is if you do drown, you could also become a drowned ghost and try and help the traitor. So the traitor is gathering allies on their side. I think that could be fun. Or just make it easier to destroy the canoe. Or maybe just make the house sink faster. What if you only had 3 turns to get there? That would be exciting. Anyway, that is Better with Friends. A wasted opportunity, in my opinion. Number 44. Haunt number 49, You Wear It Well. In You Wear It Well, the traitor is allied with an astral spirit. The astral spirit wants a body. The traitor decides to help them by knocking your souls, the souls of the heroes, out of their bodies, leaving their bodies vacant for the astral spirit to inhabit. That is a very cool concept. I really like that. I originally had this one ranked much higher because I think astral projection is a really cool sci-fi concept. It's one of my favorites. And I liked the idea of leaving behind the corporeal plane. This does come with one very cool mechanic for the heroes, which is that you are no longer bound by doorways. Doorways, if you have played Betrayal, are a big, big nuisance, a big obstacle to getting where you want to go because you will almost always create false doorways and then you're trying to avoid certain rooms, so you end up in a labyrinthine path to go back to anywhere you want to be. And when you're an astral spirit, you don't have to worry about that. You can just float through walls. That's fun. I like that. However, once you're done floating through walls, you're just making the way to win is just to beat the astral spirit into submission using sanity attacks. The astral spirit has 6 sanity, which is quite high, but not amazing. It's easy to achieve 6 sanity yourself if you play the game through enough. And frankly, it seems quite similar to number 14, The Stars Are Right, in that it's just you going up against someone else with fairly middling stats and just trying to beat them into submission. The Astral Spirit doesn't gain any particularly cool powers. It just makes sanity attacks. Again, it's just another psychic menace with sanity attacks. And I think that's a shame because I think the idea of fighting an Astral Spirit, they could have been a lot more creative with what you had to do to destroy it, or what the Astral Spirit could do. Again, imagine if there was another part to this haunt where if the Astral Spirit gets into your body, it can start doing weird things. Wouldn't that be interesting? But no, that's not the way it went. So I did originally rank this one higher. However, when I reread it, I actually thought the mechanics of it are not that interesting. So I bumped it down. I still enjoy playing it. I enjoy playing all the haunts. None of the haunts are bad, in my opinion. Just some of them are a lot more creative than others. All right. Number 43 is haunt number 19, A Friend for the Ages, aka the Dorian Gray one. Betrayal really respect copyright. Dorian Gray is far out of copyright, and they still refuse to call him Dorian Gray just in case. There is a later one that uses the Phantom of the Opera, but not! Again, the Phantom of the Opera, 100% public domain, and yet they're so honourable. They don't want to infringe on other people's ideas, unless that person is Bram Stoker and they made Dracula, or Mary Shelley and they made Frankenstein's monster. But ignoring that. A Friend for the Ages, I think, is the second iteration of The Stars Are Right, in that you go around and you pick up paint to throw it on something. I think this is the better iteration because the traitor is immortal. That's a very fun twist already. The traitor has a Dorian Gray style portrait that takes all of its damage for them, and so you cannot damage the traitor until you mar their portrait. You destroy their portrait, you throw paint on it so it no longer looks like them, and then they are able to be attacked. That's a very cool concept. I like it. I think it's a fun twist on Dorian Gray. Like, what if you repainted the portrait so it looked like someone else? What would that do to Dorian? Who knows? Why is this so low ranked then? Well, it's mainly to do with a rather confusing mechanic that's introduced in this haunt. The traitor can add in any room of the house that they want to. This is the justification given for this is that they are the owner of the house, that they bought it centuries ago and they've lived that long. That's a cool idea, but it doesn't really come to anything. In theory, it could help the traitor try and find the cans of paint before the heroes, but that's tricky because the traitor doesn't know where the cans of paint are. Obviously, they can try and guess where the heroes are going, but it's just odd because the traitor doesn't gain anything by adding rooms in the house. If I were the traitor, I would just not add rooms to the house because then the heroes have to find them. So that just makes their job harder. So I don't quite know why this mechanic was added. Another reason this is quite low ranked is a story reason, in that you are never told why you suddenly want to kill your friend. The story is just like, you find out your friend's immortal, kill him! And why would I do that? They are my friend. You even called them my friend in the text. The traitor's text reveals that they are evil, apparently, and thus they want to kill the heroes. But the hero's text definitely makes it seem like you are the instigator of this attack. So for that reason, it's thematically kind of muddled, so this one is quite low ranked. But it is way better than The Stars Are Right, if nothing else, for the Oscar Wilde homage. All right. Number 42 is haunt number 11, Let Them In. I always forget what this one is about. I had to look it up just before I filmed this video. It is about spectres getting into the house. This, I think, is the second iteration of the nightmares idea from Perchance to Dream. I think, again, it is the better iteration of that idea. Instead of things escaping through outside-facing windows, this time they're coming in through outside-facing windows, which is a much scarier concept to me. The idea of having to run around closing windows so that an invading force can't get in is just more stressful. It's scarier to me rather than trying to stop something else getting out. There is an old episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents called The Unlocked Window, And just the title alone fills me with dread, and if you are well adjusted, it should do the same thing to you. Why is this low ranked then? Well, the spectres are not that interesting. Also, again, there is a confusing mechanic instigated in this game. The madman, who is normally just a companion, so it's someone you find during the course of the game who gives you a stat boost and does not affect gameplay in any other way, is made into his own character in this haunt. He gets his own token, he can move about. However, he can't influence the game that much. He can pretty much just open windows to let spectres in. And I think that's a wasted opportunity. I think it would have been really cool to get more of the Madman's character, see more things that he could do. Also, the Madman is implied to be very strong. Why not? Why can't we see that? Why not try and actually beat him? That would be really interesting. The spectres themselves are not that interesting if you encounter them. In my opinion, it's another psychic attack. We've been there, done that. But I do like the idea of going around and closing all the windows. That's fun. So this one it's ranked slightly higher than Perchance to Dream. All right, number 41 is haunt number 21, House of the Living Zombies. There are several zombies haunts. There are several haunts that have zombies. This is the lowest ranked one. Why? Because the text implies that you're going to be overrun by zombies. There aren't that many zombies. You're not going to be overrun. You might turn into a zombie, which is fun. I like it when haunts have the possibility of you becoming one of the bad guys. That's fun because that's an extra layer, and also it means that if you are beaten by the traitor as a hero, you don't just leave the game. You still get to play, you still get to participate, you just get new rules. I like that. So this one, it scores slightly higher for that. This one also, the zombies are quite slow, which makes them quite easy to avoid, so you're not in that much danger of turning into a zombie. The zombies have a fun mechanic where they can only be beaten if you're carrying a weapon, which I like. However, just thematically, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If you beat them with a might attack without a weapon, why would that not hurt them? Why is it only weapons that can do that? There's also a thing where if you're carrying the medallion, you do more damage to them. You can beat them more easily. You can only fight the zombie lord if you are carrying the medallion. I think this is a very pathetic attempt to make the medallion seem more interesting. No one ever uses the medallion. The medallion is possibly the worst omen. I said it. We were all thinking it. But there are some fun things. The zombie lord is quite a fun antagonist. He has a presence because he has his own token. He's one of the ones who gets his own token. The completely generically named zombie lord gets his own token, and Death doesn't. Let that sink in. Let that sink in like the house is sinking into the drowning ghost's abyss. Into the drowning ghost's abyss. I messed up that sentence. Whatever. Anyway, House of the Living Dead is fun to play through, but it does feel quite generic. There's not a lot to distinguish this from just being the haunt with zombies. This would just be the haunt with zombies if there weren't better haunts with zombies that do slightly more interesting things, in my opinion. Anyway, that's haunt number 41. Oh, that's my ranking number 41. I am going to stop recording now because this video is already quite long, so I will do the next 10 in another video soon. Bye!